Okay, great. Well, a huge official welcome to all of you. This is very, very exciting. For me personally, it's very exciting. It's just going down memory lane a little bit with Jack. It was actually in 2018 that we had our first conversation about my idea about writing this book called Inside Out Transformation. It's had a few titles along the way, and that's the one that's ended up with. And I'm just so happy, excited, grateful that Jack agreed to be my first, to be the first in this series. He's the first chapter in my book. He is the first person that I organised along with my friend Katia, who's here, organising an event for here in Spain back in 2012. So we've got some history, Jack and I. So it's just so apt that you're here, Jack.
And I just want to say that I am so proud of you.
Oh, thank you.
For pulling this off and for really having it come out beautifully. It's a great book.
I appreciate that very much.
You did it.
With a lot of help from a lot of friends, yeah. Lots of support, lots of conversations, and yeah, we talked about it being a labour of love, and I said to you, there's been a little bit of pain along the way too, that's for sure, but just really pleased that it's finally out there in the world and people can read it. So yeah, I really just want to honour Jack by giving him a little bit of an introduction in terms of his official bio. Although I didn't ask you, I mean, are we allowed to say that you're actually retired officially, Jack? Are we allowed to say that? Or are you calling yourself retired anymore, or semi-retired? I don't know.
I guess I'm semi-retired.
Semi-retired, yeah. So I've got down that you're a trainer, you're a coach, you're a consultant, which we know, and you're also an author of 10 books, which I absolutely admire so much now, having written one. 10 is an amazing achievement. But you've also won prizes for your book. 2001 Model Overseer of the Martin Luther King Storyteller Award for Best Book exemplifying Dr. King's vision of the beloved community. And then in 2004, you also won the Vermont Prevention Pioneers Award. So you've got awards too, which I'm jealous, I'm a little envious of that.
What they're worth.
So well done for that. So just to set the stage a little bit to say, you know, we've got Jack Pransky here, who is, for those of you who may not have heard of him, he's a very prolific author and a consultant, coach, trainer, I would say counsellor and therapist, because you actually said all those things in the chapter in the book. So I'm just going to ask Jack to speak a little bit about one of the questions in his chapter in the book that I actually asked all of the people that are featured in the book. Because when I was going through it just before the call, I realised that I really wanted Jack to speak to deep listening, because for me, that's his biggest specialty. And for those of you who are on the call that have been here in Spain and done any of Jack's trainings, you'll know how important Jack feels that deep listening is. And every single person that he interviewed for the book also shared the same thing with me, the importance of listening. So where it features in his chapter is under the question of, do you have a process when you're working with clients? As I say, I asked that to everybody. So Jack was very clear, and I just mentioned that this is what I was going to ask him. Would you like me to remind you? And he said, no, I know that I share this all the time. I've just been sharing it with somebody. So I'm going to ask you that question, Jack. You don't need any prompts from me as to what you know your process is. You said to me in the book, you said there are 4 components as far as when you're working with clients. I'd love for you to share those with us.
Well, it just occurred to me, excuse me, to tell you where that came from. There was a guy named when I was working in the prevention field and I started to get into the three principles, there was a guy in the prevention field named Bill Lofquist who was well known in prevention, and he didn't really know anything about inside out prevention. And he was starting to write a book on prevention systems. And so I had to think, is there a system? You know, is there a system for this? Because, you know, it's weird to think of a system in a formless process. So I actually reread the book Modelo for looking at it in the sense of whether there was a system to it. And when I grasped what that system was, I then realized it was the same system over and over and again for whether you're working in a community, in an organization, in a business, doing training, doing counseling, doing coaching. It's the same system over and over again. Now, I was writing that as a chapter for that guy's book, and he rejected it. He rejected it because he couldn't, because my system was so completely different than every other system in the book that he just couldn't wrap his head around it. So he rejected it. But I was left with this this system, and it just keeps coming up over and over and over and over again. And I haven't found any exceptions to it yet. So the first part of it is that we are in our own health. You know, we know what we have seen for ourselves through the three principles, through the understanding of the three principles, and we live our lives through those eyes. And, you know, unless we forget in moments. And yet, if we forget and we show up in front of somebody to do coaching with them, it's like all of that other stuff just completely drops away. So we are left with just our own health, so to speak, being with that other person. And that's the first step, or whatever you want to call it, in the process. It's not really steps, it's just components, but it's not really components. I don't know what they are, really. The second thing is that people come in with a lot of stuff on their mind. You know, they come in with a lot of thinking, and their thinking is like, it's like has a vice grip on their head a lot of times, you know, when they're coming to see us. And they are not going to hear a thing if their mind doesn't relax. So our job then becomes helping their mind to relax. And we will do whatever we need to do to help their mind relax. And that's different for different people. It's whatever feels natural to the coach. I mean, I tend to fool around with people a lot. And that tends to relax people's minds. So we've got us in our own health, and we've got people's minds relaxing. And the third thing, which I will come back to, is deep listening. What I will say about deep listening right now is I think that deep listening is the thing that people in the three principles, for the most part, don't understand most. I mean, it sounds good, you know, it sounds like people understand it, but when you really get down to it, there's a lot of misunderstanding about what it really is. So I'll get back to that in a minute. And then, excuse me, it's only when, I mean, basically I'm in I don't know mode when I'm with a client. And I'm just listening. I don't know. And there's no sense of me saying anything about the principles or about anything until I get a hit out of my listening that I need to convey something to somebody. Something strikes me that I need to convey to them. And so that's the fourth part of the process. So that's the process over and over and over and over again. It's not like you do one at a time. It's like they all just kind of intersect and coincide or coalesce or something. I don't know what you call it. But as far as the process goes, that's the one I've been using for as many years as I've started to coach or started to do anything with the principles. Are you wanting me to keep going, Sheila, or do you have?
Oh, I was just got distracted. Somebody messaged me that they could hear a tapping noise, but we know what that is, don't we?
Oh my goodness. I'm sorry. I want to apologize. I want to apologize because I've got this on my lap and I get excited. And so
we said it's your knocking knees.
Click my legs and sorry.
Oh, that's fine. It's fine. Nothing we could do. So thank you for sharing that. And do you want to expand on the deep listening, or do you want to open it up for questions, Jack? What do you want?
Well, I'll just say something about deep listening, and that is I am a total blank. Like really, it used to be something that I would have to kind of work up to, but now I just sit with someone and I just become blank. I don't really know how to describe it. Like I am nothing. I am zero. I am nothing. I am gone from the picture. I am just I've never thought of it this way before. I am just the consciousness of listening. That's all I am. I am not in the picture. Okay? So all that really is sitting in front of the other person is blankness. I'm an empty vessel. And the greatest thing I've ever discovered about deep listening for myself is that the answers exist out there in universal mind. And by out there, I also mean in here, everywhere. The answers exist in universal mind. Not only, like a lot of times people don't know what the root of the problem is that they bring to us. Universal mind knows. People don't know what the solution is to the problem. Universal mind knows. That's what we're listening for. We're listening with a mind so quiet that we can hear that. It's like we can hear the answers that are embedded in universal mind, you could say. And they come to us through insight. But I don't really know how to describe it. It's just kind of something that happens. But I think one of the big difficulties that people run into when they're coaching through the three principles is they think they have, as a coach, like you think you have to say something. Like you think you have to talk about the principles because it's three principles coaching. But if it doesn't come up, if I don't get hit with that in the moment, then I'm not going to talk about it because I don't know what it means, but it might mean that the person isn't able to hear it yet or whatever it is. But I am not coming into the session thinking that I have to say anything. And in fact, that just gets in my way to have that on my mind. So I'm just being with someone and I'm a blank and I'm waiting for something to come to me, but not consciously. You know, I don't know if that makes any sense to anybody.
I think it makes a lot of sense to a lot of people. Yeah. I know, having gone through many trainings with you, Jack, here, as many people on this call have, just how much time we spend on looking at deep listening and what it is and what it isn't. I think it is important, it's just as important to look at what it isn't as what it is, because most of us don't realize how much we've got going on in our minds when we actually think we're listening to somebody else.
Yeah, that was actually the first thing I ever realized about deep listening. And I give Linda Pransky credit for this. I never realized that when I was listening to someone that I would have thoughts. You know, it sounds like a really silly thing to say, but I really didn't realize it. And I would get thinking about what somebody else is saying, and suddenly I would be thinking about what I was thinking about, and I would lose the other person. Like, I never knew that happened before. So if you know that if you're like aware that that's what's going on, then you have a tendency to notice if you get a thought and know you don't want to go there. Like, we will get thoughts, but they want to, like, they're jumping into our head and we want them to jump out as fast as possible. What we don't want to do is hold on to them in any way, shape, or form. The other thing about what you said that reminded me is that, you know, talking about deep listening only takes us so far. I mean, the reason in our trainings, the reason I spent so much time with it is because we had people practice it, you know, and get feedback. And that's really where the rubber meets the road. So on something like this, you know, you can only take it so far, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's experiential. Okay, well, I'm keen for people to be able to be in conversation with you as well as me. So if anybody has any questions, could you please go to the reactions button and hit the raise hand, and then we can take you in order. So Johannes is quick off the mark and has put his hand up. So feel free to unmute yourself, Johannes, and ask Jack whatever you'd like to ask him.
Doing that right now. Sheila, Jack, thank you so much for this. It's really wonderful just hearing Jack talk and getting reflective on his, you know, process or components and whatever. And what came up for me as a question is about deep listening. And, you know, particularly there's a situation right now where I'm preparing for a workshop with a team that is like a business team. Actually, it's a public sector team. And my intake has shown that their communication and quality of relationships is really horrendous. And it basically makes me think, is deep listening the solution to everything? Is that sort of like the ultimate leverage point for someone, especially someone who's not familiar with the principles, to, you know, get a glimpse of, let's, you know, separate realities or who they really are, or the capacity to have insights? Because in business and in those settings, we're usually trained to do like active listening. So, you know, to listen, but in order to analyze and evaluate and judge and all that. And I'm consciously thinking about, hey, what if I were to get them to try out deep listening? What would that do for them? And I'm curious to hear your opinion or experiences, maybe also from working with groups or basically not coaches, not change workers.
Yeah, thank you, Johannes. And first of all, the active listening is the exact opposite of deep listening, because it fills our head with stuff and we want to be totally empty. And in answer to your question, it's like all four of those components are, in a sense, the answer. Like if we're not in our health, they're going to pick that up and wonder what they're listening to you for. You know, if their heads are not calmed down and clear, it doesn't matter what we say. They're not going to hear anything anyway. Deep listening is something that gives us the connection with people. And obviously, if people in a business are not getting along well together, they're not deep listening to each other. And if they can be taught what deep listening is and actually, you know, get some practice in it, that would be an amazing thing for them to really hear, because chances are they've never thought of that before. Chances are they don't, most of them don't know that when they listen, they have thoughts and then they go off into their thoughts and lose the other person. And if you see people talking over each other, you know, there's no listening there at all. So that is a key for sure. And a very, very, very important one. So your instincts are right.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. It seems like, you know, just in that setting, what I could do is I can try to, you know, show up in those 4 components, and maybe the deep listening is something that I could try and facilitate for them. And yeah, I've seen a lot about that for myself, and
Great.
Thank you so much for reminding me of it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Johannes. Okay, so Gerna, I hope I've said that right. I've pronounced it probably not, but would you like to unmute yourself?
Yeah, you said it quite right, I think. Jack, this is not a question, just a comment, because you said something very interesting, I think, about the answer is already there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this gives me, you know, sometimes when you wake up in the morning, you get an answer. It's served for you. You have forgot all about the problem, and suddenly the answer is there. So I think it's a very effective way to see it. It gives a lot of meaning that the answers are already there. So
we get the answer because we stopped thinking about it.
Yeah.
That's the amazing thing about it, you know?
Yeah. So it is.
Yeah. And I was going to say something else, but I forgot what it was. So just remind me what you said at the beginning.
I think it was interesting.
Oh, that the answer is there. Okay.
Yeah.
The answer is there. All
it's
right.
Already
So,
yeah.
You know,
you just can't see it.
Yeah, you just can't see it. And what I was going to say before was, that's why it doesn't pay to listen to their words. The answer is not in their words. It's not even what they know that's behind their words. It's something bigger than that. Something more huge than that. The answer is something they don't know, we don't know, and we want to be so totally clear in our mind that we can hear it. So people's words tend to more like wash over me, as opposed to like paying attention to them. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's kind of more like listening to music, you know?
Yeah.
Just letting it.
So thank you very much. It gave a lot of meaning for me. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Gerna. That's I love it with that. Just before we move to me, I just love listening to you, Jack. I do. Just you know, when you speak about it's not in the words, and it's like listening to music. That's what it feels like when I'm listening to you, for sure. Just it's not in your words either, for me personally. When I'm listening to you, there's just such a beautiful feeling with what comes through, and just pointing to the fact that it's much bigger than us. Like, that's really, for me, that means a lot, that it's so much bigger than us, that we get caught up in the minutiae and the details, and actually that's not helpful at all. So thank you for pointing that out again.
Thank you. And you know, I really want to, that reminded me of something, and that is, like, if I come across with a beautiful feeling, that's what we want to be. That, like, we want to be that in a coaching session. We want a beautiful feeling to emanate out of us, because a beautiful feeling is what we are. I mean, that's who we really are. That's our spiritual essence. And it would come out for everybody to see if we get out of our own way. And I think the only thing that can keep people from seeing it is our own thinking. Like, our own thinking would be in the way of the beautiful feeling coming across. So it's not me. I mean, everybody has that within them. It's just a question of getting out of our way. And the other thing is, if you see the other person with love who's sitting across from you, it will come out. No matter who the person is. We're not seeing their problems. We're not seeing their presenting issues. We're seeing the essence of who they are. And the essence of who they are is love. And that's the essence of who we are. And it's just a question of those things meeting together. And that's what brings the beautiful feeling. So I'm glad you brought that up, even though it wasn't a question.
Cool. Thank you, Madhu. So Nick.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, Jack.
Hi, I'm trying to see where you are. I'm not. Maybe I should go to the other view for a moment. Speaker view. Okay, there you are, Mick.
Hi there.
Hey, great to see you.
And you. I realized when I put my hand up, as soon as I put my hand up, I got insecure, and like, I know you've, and then in the answer you've just given, you've already answered the question to some degree. Well, no, more than some degree. But the question I have is around the getting the hit. You know, the fourth stage. In that, when I hear you say that, you are so accustomed to getting the hit that you have complete confidence in the previous statement. You have complete confidence in the previous statement that the answer is always there, is already there, and therefore you know you're going to be hit.
Well, I don't know I'm going to be hit. I do have total confidence that the answer is there.
Okay.
But I don't know that I'm going to be hit. I have faith that I'm going to be hit. I have trust in it, but whether it actually happens or not is, you know, I can't be sure of it. Now, it happens more often than not. Go ahead.
I think that's kind of my I mean, I can see that my thinking, if I'm concerned that I'm not going to be hit, then I am thinking, obviously, you know, and that's in the way. I can see that's in the way.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think the question is, I think the question is kind of, what do I do until it starts happening more? It's kind of something
Everybody
along
wants
that
to
line.
know what they do.
Until, yeah.
All right. So if I haven't gotten a hit, my listening isn't good enough.
Yeah.
That's the way I feel about it. So I want to like regroup and go back to being like totally blank. You know, I might say something to them that occurs to me, or ask them a question or something like that, just to you know, get the ball rolling again, you could say. And you know, it's like, I'm not actually saying this to them, although I have said this occasionally, but it's like, oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I just kind of lost it for a minute. And, you know, I really want to go back to listening again. So that's why I'm not getting the hit. My listening isn't deep enough, because it's there. It's honestly there.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. That was a great question. Somebody said that was a really good question. So, Patricia, would you like to unmute yourself?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Sheila. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Mick. Would it be fair to say that, or safe to say, or whatever the words are, that you could go have a session and not get a hit, and just that's okay too?
It's okay to me, because the way I feel about it is that I'm not responsible for anybody else's insight, because I can't make anybody else have an insight. I can't make myself have an insight, can't make anybody else have an insight, and insight is the only thing that's going to change people. Now, it would be nice if I got a hit, but if I don't, I can just tell them, you know, I'm not seeing this right now. I'm not seeing what I need to see, and I don't really know why, because that's the truth. And I'm not seeing what I need to see, and I don't really know why. Or I might ask them to, it depends what occurs to me in the moment. So I might ask them, you know, what they've heard so far and how it helps them or not. Or I might ask them, you know, like, what do you think you're not seeing? Or what would you like to know more about? You know, so I'm keeping the questions that occur to me going, so that it will, in a sense, never thought of it about it this way before, but recharge my deep listening. You know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like I'm just saying, well, I'm not getting a hit, that's it. You know, I'm really throwing out whatever I need to see. You know, I might throw out something that occurs to me that, you know, I even know is off base, but they're going to respond to it and say something. Or it's more not as much like knowing that it's off base. It's like wondering whether it's on base or not.
Mm-hmm.
And they will tell me if it isn't. Like if I'm off, they'll tell me. And then we have something more for me to listen to and more to talk about. So that's kind of like what happens.
Got it. This state you described with being nothing when you're deep listening is just being blank, it's just, wow. It sounds so wonderful. It sounds very, very wonderful. Is this something that would not necessarily, like, that's not necessarily the way one would listen in all situations. Like, that's not necessarily how you would try to be at a water cooler, or at a grocery store with the transactions?
Let's put it this way. If I did, I'd probably have a better experience.
Okay. Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you, Patricia. Okay, so next, Katie.
Hi, thank you. I was just then getting curious, Jack, about deep listening to yourself. Does that even sound like a thing?
Yes.
As opposed to in a coaching situation with a client, because someone earlier said about, you know, how ideas pop in your head when you're not trying to get them. But I'm wondering if there's such a thing as deep listening to yourself and what that looks like.
100%. And the way I think of that is reflection. Like reflection is the total opposite of analysis or figuring things out, you know. Reflection is like asking ourselves a question, taking it off our mind, going about our business and seeing what comes. And something will come when our mind clears. So that's the way I see deep listening to oneself. And it has helped me on numerous occasions. And when I forget about that, that's when I get into trouble.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Really good questions. Thank you, Katie. So Ellen. Hi, Ellen. Yourself.
I loved the question about deep listening to yourself because I've been playing around with that and loving that space in my relationship with myself. So thank you. So just continuing on Mick's question, and I'm not even sure what the question is. It's evolving right now. There are lots of times when I'm clear in hearing universal mind. And I can discern, I feel like I can discern better when it's universal mind. But I'm also, when I'm in conversation with someone, it's so, my personal mind can be so clever to disguise, like it feels like a disguise as universal mind. And I don't see it until after. And I know, I'm sure you have something to share about that, Jack.
Well, you know, the first thing that strikes me is it's okay if it doesn't occur to you until after, because it occurs to you.
Mm.
And as long as it occurs to you, you're fine. And, you know, I've been in situations with a client where nothing occurs to me, and then something occurs to me later, and I will get back to them.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get back to them and I'll say, something occurred to me that didn't occur to me during the session, and I won't charge them for it.
Yeah.
Because they already paid me.
I guess it's the in the moment discernment of personal mind speaking, like listening. I love this listening for the hit from universal mind. And in the moment thinking that it's universal mind when it's just personal mind. And as I'm saying that, if there's only one mind, then what difference does it make?
Well,
yet I want to be open to universal. This is where I'm
yes, everything is universal mind, but there's the purest part of universal mind. And that's in our pure consciousness. And so we want to be listening through our pure consciousness. And that's in our the pathway to that is blankness and love. Okay. Now, if you really pay attention, personal mind and the purest part of universal mind speaks with a different tone of voice, you could say. All kinds of things are coming to me today that I've never thought of quite like that before. But it sounds different.
It feels different.
Yeah.
There's a different, the quality of the feeling is way different.
So doesn't that suggest that if we get a hit of something and we don't know whether it's our personal mind or whether it's, you know, pure consciousness speaking, we might want to just take a step back and ask ourselves, is this, you know, is this my personal thinking, or is this pure universal mind? I mean, usually we can tell. Usually we can tell because there's so much of it feels so much more solid and right. And sometimes it speaks with a very strange voice because we don't know what's going to allow them to hear something that triggers their own insight.
Yeah. And I'm also remembering that when it comes with any sort of urgency or any sort of rightness or righteousness, that's from my personal mind. That's
really true.
Yeah. Thank you both. Thank you both for not just the writing, but this beautiful time we're all sharing all together. It's wonderful, Sheila and Jack.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. And thank you for your question too. It was just while somebody else is maybe thinking about raising their hand, I'll talk to you.
Frederick's hand up earlier. I think I saw Frederick's hand up earlier, but then he took it down. But I may have.
Oh, I didn't notice. I don't know if you're teasing him, or you just, or are you teasing him to make him come out and speak?
I'm on the speaker view now, so
okay.
I'm.
Oh well, Bob and Marty have got their hands. Their united hand up. Would you like to unmute and ask Jack something?
Yes. Whenever you get the hit, and you're listening deeply to the other person, that resonance, I feel it like a resonance, like a tuning fork when you strike one and bring it close to another. There's a response and a alignment in the tune of the other. Have you ever had the experience of having an insight for someone and they also immediately had a feeling like you share it with them and then they respond, yes, that
happens quite a lot, actually.
Yeah.
It doesn't do me any good to have the insight if they don't have the insight. It doesn't do them any good. I mean, sometimes it actually does me good. Like I was in this coaching session about a month ago, and I was listening to this woman who's an Orthodox Jewish woman who grew up in a household where she was like yelled at all the time. And she is now 30 years old, still living in that situation and still getting yelled at all the time. And all of a sudden I'm listening to her and she's talking about her father or her brother yelling at her. And all of a sudden it occurred to me, what if they don't exist? And it was like, I got shocked by that. Like, because it occurred to me, the only way they can possibly exist for her is if how she takes that in through her thinking. Like they wouldn't be anywhere in her consciousness if she didn't take them in through her thinking in a certain way. So in a sense, they don't exist. And they only exist in terms of the meaning that we make of it for ourselves through our own thinking. So I just thought, I felt like paying her for the session. I mean, I thought that was such an amazing thing. Now I tried to explain it to her, and she did not get what I was talking about at all. And yet I saw that so deeply that it's actually helped me out in my own life a few times.
I had a similar experience. I was trying to help someone who had PTSD, and nothing that was said ever helped her stop being triggered. And finally I said, well, what if you just pretend that you have amnesia?
That's great.
And when you see the conditions coming there where you have been triggered in the past, just pretend you have absolutely no memory, that you're a brand new creation. It didn't help her have an insight. But I had, like you, I had an insight about how my own thinking could get off base.
Well, that's good enough. And if they have another session with us, maybe they'll see it then. And if they don't, maybe they'll see it driving to the grocery store. I mean, you just never know. That's the thing about these coaching sessions is it's not like something has to happen within the coaching session. It's like an ongoing thing. Something that was said in the coaching session might end up like hitting the person later on. Sometimes we never even know about it.
Like a seed that's been planted and it has to germinate later.
That's, good way to put it. Yeah.
Thank you, Jack.
Thanks, Jack.
Love you.
For sure.
Thank you. Oh, Martine, every time I want to have a chat with Jack, people put their hand up. Okay, it's your turn now.
I can put it down if you want.
No, I'm just teasing.
On that conversation, let's say, as you know, I come from the 4 to 6 sessions. I'll go to the buying and resolve the cause. So with coaching, I find it more slow in a sense. And if a person at the end of the session, if they didn't have an insight, I take it on me. Like, what's wrong? No, what? Like I almost as if I failed the other person.
Well, you could do that, but
what? Yeah, I know it's not very not good. Yeah,
would be the point. It's like. Again, what I think I said to Mick, I think, was, it just means I'm not deeply listening enough. To me, that's just what that means. Now, so like I said, I mean, I'll just keep throwing out questions that occur to me or statements to see how they'll react, and go back into listening. And hope something happens next time. But, if we carry around in our head that, bad us, we did not come up with anything, and usually it has to do with payment. Oh, they're paying me. I'm not coming up with anything. Not good. I mean, you can't force these things to happen. They just happen on their own good time. I mean, I've like, if I feel like I've done them wrong or something, I'll give them their money back. I mean, it's because for me, it's not a question of money. It's a question of being of service to people. But I'm not going to be too quick to do that. So if you can think of one possible bit of good it does to go into that, then be my guest. But really, you know, a lot of times if we ask ourselves, wait a minute, is this doing me any good to think this way? Then doing more thinking in that direction, it just gets to a point where it doesn't make sense anymore. Well, it's great to see you, Martine.
Great to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Martine. Well, looks like our final question. Sorry?
Diane.
Yeah,
Goodness.
Diane. Looks like Diane's up.
Okay, I'll try to make it quick. To me, it's a question for Jack, but really it's a question for all of us, because what keeps coming up is this, like, how do we make it work? How do we help? And for me, that's what I felt so strongly when I first started learning 3 principles, because I was also schooled master's PhD in social work, where literally, you know, they're cramming active listening down your throat, and, you know, people are broken and our job is to fix them. And so you have this whole thing in your head where you really take it really seriously that you're there because somebody else's problem that needs to be solved. And I mean, this understanding just throws that out the window. So the question you ask yourself is, like, all of us, you know, well, what really do we think our job is here? And if we believe more than anything, it's to just hold a sacred space where the person that we're being with is like understanding for themselves where their pitfalls are and their snags and their challenges. Then it becomes so easy to just like be a sacred space. I mean, I've never thought of it as blank or zero, because I feel like it's warmer and fuzzier than that. It's safer. It's not zero. But it's a sacred space. And so, and Jack, I mean, I just think you have a little magic in that way, in the way that you do it. And I don't know if there's a way that you can tell us, you know, like, how is it that you got there? Because I think we all have it, but you just tapped into it in a very powerful way. But
you should know, Diane, it's love.
Yeah, it is love. And all you need is love.
That's right. And you emanate that yourself.
Well,
you know, especially when you're sitting with people, you emanate that. That's what they pick up, and that's why you're so good.
Yeah, thank you. I don't worry as much about, like what Mick was saying. It resonated with me because I know that feeling of like, what if I don't know what to say? But as soon as you have that thought, you're just in your own head, you know, and it's all about, they're the only ones that need to know. And it really does come to you in a quiet, confident way when you're just, all you are is a warm, loving space, and they're doing all the work.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I mean, it's a beautiful statement.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
This has been great, really great. Everybody knows that. Everybody said it, but it really has been great. Okay.
Thank you, Diane. That was, you know, so for those of you who don't know, Diane came out and co-taught with Jack one of the years that here out in Spain, in one of the trainings. And one of the things I always remember, Diane, that you said, it's funny how you just sometimes remember what people say. In one of the trainings, in one of the sessions, you said, deep listening is like, I take people in like I'm drinking a gorgeous, delicious hot cup of chocolate. It's funny how you remember what you remember, right? And I just remember that's like, oh, that's a really lovely, really lovely vision, a really lovely feeling of just whatever your favorite drink happens to be, you know, just really taking somebody in like that. And it's great. So thank you. And it has been wonderful to have everybody here, and to see you again, Jack, connect with you, and to connect with so many old friends and new friends, I hope. In celebration.
Everybody.
Yeah, well, I think we could stop the recording and we could unmute and have a bit of mayhem if you want. I think that would be a great idea. Shall we do that? Yeah, let me just